Before we turn our attention to 2025, I can't believe it's 2025, the future. There's one place left to look back at 2024, and that's the overall box office. Oh boy! So now the movie space still hasn't recovered from the pandemic. Well, I think that's actually misleading. That's what everybody keeps saying. They're like, we got to get back to pre-pandemic numbers. But I don't think that's actually what's happened. I think that the pandemic, like in a sci-fi way, like sped up, like put entertainment in a bubble and sped up time to get us to a place where streaming is the most popular form of experiencing entertainment. I mean, it's more convenient, it's cheaper, and I think that's what the movie space is really dealing with these days. And as we also keep discussing, and as the movie theater business is finally admitting, quality of experiences has also become a big factor as well. From crowd behavior to theater upkeep to offering a lavish enough experience to warrant not only leaving the comforts of home, but the very high price of the ticket. Although, of course, they have those subscription services at some theaters, and we still don't know how anybody makes money off of that. I pay $25 a month, and I can see up to 3 movies a week, and somehow everybody still gets their ticket money. But anyway, they're wonderful. I think that that's what the movie business is actually dealing with. Now, in 2019, it's so bad what's happened to the movie business. So in 2019, the last year before the pandemic, 9 of the top 10 movies worldwide were in the $1 billion club. It was a beautiful sight. Not anymore. This year, there are just 2 movies in the $1 billion club. And to qualify for the worldwide top 10, you only got to be in the 400 million range. A number of movies, not like just one at $4.99 got in, Price is Right style. That's sad. All right, after no $1 billion movies in 2020, that was the big year of the pandemic, we had 1 in 2021, 3 in 2022, and 2 in 2023. Both the worldwide and domestic box office numbers, by the way, in 2024 were down from 2023. It's not even like we're consistently going up. We're going up, but we just dipped a little bit. Oh, noes. However, there continues to be one constant in Hollywood, and that's that the mouse wins. The mouse keeps winning. It's incredible. Yes, Disney is almost $2 billion ahead of the runner-up for 2024, which is Universal, and was able to nab 4 of the worldwide top 10. They even got Mufasa in there. Damn! That's incredible. Fascinatingly, the domestic top 10 was split between Disney, Universal, and Warner Brothers, with Universal leading the pack at 4 movies, Warner Brothers and Disney at 3 apiece. Paramount and Sony totally locked out. Couldn't even get a movie in the top 10 domestic. Uh-oh. Worldwide, thanks to global audiences not being that into Beetlejuice and loving Tom Hardy, Sony managed to take one of Warner Brothers' spots. And yes, Mufasa, as I said, is in there as well because Twisters also was very soft overseas. Beetlejuice and Twisters, they did not care for them outside of the United States. Are you from outside the United States? Why didn't you like... I can see why you didn't like Twisters. It was vastly inferior to the first film. But why didn't you like Beetlejuice? I think some of you said Halloween's not big in the rest of the world. What? All right, so anyway, here challenges Christmas. All right, so worldwide, Disney has 4 movies. Disney has 4, Universal 3, Warner Brothers 2, Sony 1, and Paramount still left out. Gladiator 2 is the closest they got at number 12. That's actually pretty good considering how bad I think Gladiator is. I mean, I can't believe it's actually, it's to finish in the 400s, although it wasn't enough, is, not too embarrassing. I wouldn't make Gladiator 3, though. Did you see Paul Mescal dropped out of Ridley Scott's next movie? Good idea, Paul. He's like, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. You're making me look bad. All right, before we look at each studio individually, what fun. I think 2025 is looking like a banger year with a ton of big event movies with little downtime in between. Because of the strikes, 2024 was just a sprinkling of movies over the vast landscape. And there would be many times, many weekends where we're like, that's it? Well, in 2025, we're looking at like it was in the old days with a big movie, at least one, almost every single weekend. So we'll really test how strong the siren call is to stay at home. Also, 2025 is betting very big on superhero movies. Don't worry, I'm going to do a bunch of 2025 videos coming up. But with all these superhero movies, I think we'll test out how legit the superhero fatigue theory really is. What's your guess? Do you think? I think it's a lot of superhero movies. All right, then here's another interesting takeaway. These days, you got to spend money to make money. The Hollywood Reporter published a very detailed chart of the top 20 movies of 2024. And the thing that jumped out to me right away, because we don't usually get this information in charts, was that only one movie in the top 20 was made for under 50 million. This is Us. It ends with Us. And then that's funny. They're both melodramatic. But anyway, and only 6 were made for under 100 million. And those were all at the bottom with the exception of Kung Fu Panda from Universal. So that movie, Universal probably has a particularly big hug for DreamWorks. They're like, you made it and you made it cheap. I love you, baby. Animation. 4 of the top 10 movies of 2024, domestic and worldwide, were animated. And only 1 movie was rated R. So while social media loves to call out Hollywood for big spending and more commercialized fare, that's what everyone pays to see at the box office. Hollywood's like, you can complain all you want, but I'm the one who needs a return on my investment, and this is what people want to see. But don't worry, cinema isn't totally dead, as we'll discover as we deep dive into each of the major studios. And then at the very end, don't worry, I'll do a little look at the smaller studios, because there's some interesting things there as well. But we're going to look at the majors. We're down to just 5 of them in order of success. So number 1, Disney, which as you might recall, ate Fox. Say what you will about Bob Iger, but the man gets results. And they did it with just 8 new pictures. 3 from Fox, 1 from Searchlight. There were 2 other Searchlight movies, but they barely registered at the box office. But Disney proper only released 4 movies in 2024. Why? Because Bob Iger, very quietly, don't talk about it, canceled and delayed several films. Their day of reckoning now coming in 2025. I don't think it's going to save them, but we'll see. You can put it off, but you can't avoid it. Unless you, I think somebody who pointed out that Warner Brothers had a special situation because they'd acquired, Discovery had acquired Warner Brothers, so that's why they could do the write-offs. Apparently it's not an option for the other studios. Now, 2 of the major Disney pipelines were offline in 2024, Star Wars and Avatar, theatrically, while Marvel only delivered 1 movie. But what a movie! Wow! Marvel proved once again to be a core part of Disney's foundation, and Pixar came roaring back to life. That's right! Bob didn't go on a spending spree all those years ago for nothing. He bought up all this IP. It was very smart. Disney Animation also delivered so close to $1 billion. It might still get there. I think it's not going to get there, but I think it's like Multiverse of Madness. So close, it's pretty much $1 billion. Well, Disney live action adaptations, they did okay. They're not dead. Let's put it that way. As for Fox, their IP is significantly smaller than Disney's. But when you put them together, Apes and Aliens helped Disney, put Disney over the top. They're not going to, that's about 700 million combined. We'll take it. And while a complete unknown isn't doing franchise business big or small, it's the most successful movie ever from Searchlight, so that's very nice as well. Now, while this is a far cry from Disney's usual home run a month slate, that's what Disney usually does, 12 movies, 1 a month, all huge for the most part, they still managed to have 3 bangers and 3 workhorses, and that got the job done. While it was a different story for the other studios. All right, so runner-up, Universal. Didn't I tell you? Everybody always usually says it's Disney versus Warner Brothers, but Universal always manages to come out of nowhere and slam dunk in everybody's face. Although these days, they're not quite as ninja as they used to be. They're making their ambitions a bit more clear, particularly their desire to come for Disney. They're looking over Disney's shoulder, and they're not even trying to hide it anymore. 2025 is going to be a very dramatic year for Disney versus Universal. Not only does Epic Universe open in Florida, what will happen to the theme park ecosystem down there? And then also, of course, Universal will release its own first live-action animated adaptation, How to Train Your Dragon. Will they get as much drama and also money as Disney has gotten for their adaptations? It's looking interesting. I wonder what live-action Minions will eventually look like. That's where we're headed. I'm like, Steve Carell, get ready to play Gru in live action. I wonder if it has to be Steve Carell. That's very interesting. All right, so Universal, though, is a machine with 12 new movies released in 2024 from the home studio and an additional 9 from their Focus Features shingle. Focus, how do you have so many movies over there? No wonder they're so eager to send their movies to digital. They're the fastest sending to digital studio in Hollywood. They pioneered it during the pandemic, you might recall. But they got to clear the deck for the next movie. But it's working. They make big bucks in the theater and on digital. And as they've proven, sending their movies to digital doesn't hurt them that much at the box office. They still chug along there as well. Just like with Disney, Universal has 2 animation houses going, and they're going great. Illumination's Secret Weapon continues to be incredible overseas appeal, and DreamWorks delivered 2 hits for Universal this year. And of course, Wicked, which is actually another pretty big shot at Disney because it's Universal's live-action fairy tale musical extravaganza. And Disney's like, wait a minute. Universal even released it right around Thanksgiving, which has historically been Disney territory. And Moana still did great, but it might have been a little bit over $1 billion instead of under if it weren't for Wicked. I'm just saying. First Warner Brothers and now Universal have had big female LGBTQ hits, right? Sony has one to a degree. But meanwhile, Bob Iger bought Marvel and Star Wars to increase Disney's appeal with boys and men. And it worked. Although, it's really funny. People have commented that they bought those brands to appeal to men, but yet as soon as the Disney executives and, leadership got their hands on it, they were like, let's make it appeal to women. Bob's like, no, I didn't buy it for that. But they tried, and they didn't do a particularly good job with it. And I don't know if it's even doable, to be honest with you. Now, of course, there are female fans like myself of those things, but not enough to support a film that needs to have the budget that these movies need to have. But Disney, they just haven't been able to create significant female interest in Star Wars and Marvel. So I think it's very interesting that female audiences are largely driven to Disney animation and I guess the live action adaptations of that animation, while male audiences are over with Disney live action. So that's really an interesting divide. I'm sure with Wicked and Barbie, though, Bob is like, I want one. And he kind of had one with 2017's Beauty and the Beast, which they had thought about maybe doing a sequel to, but that never materialized. I don't think it's going to be Snow White, but you know what? I think we're all saying the same things. Many of you probably already typed it down below. Bring back Wanda. Duh! Back to Universal, outside of their, so that's talking about female hits, female-led hits. Back to Universal overall, outside of their few big hits, they had 4 kind of, because Twisters was soft overseas. But overall, Universal really had a numbers game for 2024. We're releasing a flurry of flicks, with a number of them doing solid to actually pretty good business. In fact, Universal released so many movies in 2024, even their losses kind of faded away. They just threw movies at you. And so the ones that were not good fell away. Finally, I'd like to also point out that Nosferatu from Focus was a really nice last-minute surprise for the studio, taking the current horror craze and elevating it to mini blockbuster status, to move beyond the die-hard horror fandom and actually cross over to the mainstream as well, while still retaining the die-hard fans. I think what Universal did with Nosferatu and Robert Eggers did with Nosferatu is very exciting, not only for the studio, but for the genre. All right, then Warner Brothers. Why doesn't Hollywood take more risks? Well, one only has to look at Warner Brothers' 2024 slate to see why. Joker 2 and Horizon were bold swings, huge shows of faith in their respective directors. And it doesn't always work out, Brady Corbett. He did a big Golden Globes acceptance speech about how trust your directors. And Warner Brothers is like, I'd like to offer a counterpoint too, actually. Both of these movies not only failed to live up to expectations, but turned into nightmares for the studio. Their prestige DC movie decimated, and the call was coming from inside the studio. While who knows when Horizon 2 completed and Horizon 3 partially filmed, maybe even completed, I don't know if it's been edited, but if they'll ever see the light of day. Although Horizon Part 1 is kind of doing decent numbers on Netflix, so maybe there's a way. Don't give up, Kevin. I liked Horizon 1. And Horizon 2 looked really good. I want to see it. Furiosa was also a disappointment, doing about half of what Fury Road brought in. And Fury Road wasn't a huge box office hit. Fury Road really excelled by also winning a lot of awards. But Warner Brothers still had some bright spots. Dune solidified itself as a major franchise. The Monsterverse not only stayed alive, it was looking pretty bad there for a while, but arguably, according to fans, delivered its best Hollywood movie yet. And Tim Burton managed to bring back a very old IP and have it not blow up in everyone's face. I'm looking at you, Indiana Jones. In fact, domestically, it's actually Warner Brothers' biggest movie of the year. Too bad, apparently overseas, nobody's been watching Beetlejuice for all these years. You're missing out! Warner Brothers leadership, to be fair, is still learning the ropes and getting control. Zazie brought in new people. Here's hoping they have a less embarrassing 2025. Then Sony, not last, second to last. Now, as we've also been discussing a lot, Spider-Man is pretty much Sony's one and only franchise, which is why they'll never give it up. Certainly their only really big one that can deliver at a high rate, not only in terms of box office, but output. But gosh darn it if they aren't trying their hardest to run it into the ground. Spider-Man 4 continues to be apparently in development hell. It's taken a long time to get this script to a good place. It has a release date now, so I guess it's pre-production hell. But come on, we all know they're going to lose that game of release date chicken with Christopher Nolan, especially now that we know it's the Odyssey. Move to the holidays, Sony. So anyway, they have to get Papa Disney's permission because that's a joint project with the MCU, and Disney, of course, owns Christmas. Although Universal's like, wouldn't be so sure about that. All right, so anyway, but Venom barely, because they challenged them for Thanksgiving. Venom barely made it into the worldwide top 10 and domestically only got to 18. While Kraven, well, all you really need to know about Kraven is that it is a bigger flop than both Morbius and Madam Web. It is the least successful Spider-Man spin-off ever, and that is really saying something. Bad Boys, despite the Will Smith drama, is still a franchise that Sony can rely on, while Ghostbusters had a bit of a setback this year. Animation, their animation pipeline needs work. Just like Universal, Sony also got burned bad by Apple. And while they tried to play the numbers game as well, most of their movies flopped. They didn't, that's a whole lot of flops. Lionsgate, we'll talk about Lionsgate. Sony's big win in 2024 undeniably was It Ends With Us, a super cheap film that blew up at the box office. Unfortunately, though, it also blew up in the tabloids and now is blowing up in court. So not looking too good for that sequel. Yep, Sony needs more franchises and to fix Spider-Man, and they're going to work on that. They know what the assignment is, and they plan to work on that over the next 2 years. Spider-Man 4, they're betting. I think that's one of the reasons it's taking so long. They got to get it right. Starting off a new trilogy is always difficult. Karate Kid, though, 28 years later, Street Fighter and Jumanji 3 are all coming in the next 2 years. There's even another 28 or later movie as well in the mix there. So let's see what happens. Then, in last place is Paramount. They tried. They really tried. But the wins just didn't materialize. I think it's pretty clear at this point that you can't count on Ridley Scott to deliver anymore. And while A Quiet Place Day One was very strong out of the gate, in the end, it couldn't match either of the previous two films overall. Mean Girls ended up a disaster. Should have advertised it truthfully as a musical. While If was slow out of the gate, but actually ended up having a bit of a marathon performance, and I think Paramount's very happy with that. They're going to continue their very good relationship with John Krasinski, who, of course, is also behind the Day One movies. And while fans loved Transformers 1 and Smile 2, good movies. Neither one, unfortunately, lived up to their box office histories. Both were soft. Bob Marley was a nice surprise, though, for the studio. Surprisingly expensive movie, though. $70 million to make that. And rejoice, Sonic fans! You were a big part of holding up the studio this year. So even though your numbers aren't huge, they're, compared to the movies you're standing next to, you look fabulous. All right, then, beyond the major studios, well, we all had our fun laughing at Red One. Dwayne Johnson surely has a big in at Amazon MGM. They'll take his calls because he delivered their biggest movie of the year. The Beekeeper also was a sensation, particularly on digital, as you might recall. And Challengers not only did solid business, but is now picking up some awards. It's a different measuring stick for these smaller studios because, they're still kind of trying to climb up to the top. Blink Twice, though, leads a pack of underperformers. Blink Twice was good. But thank goodness that Amazon also needs to feed their Prime Video streaming service, so even the smaller movies are valuable to them. Then Lionsgate it's interesting, Amazon is also a streaming service primarily, but since they go with theatrical releases, like legitimate theatrical releases, their movies are regarded as movies, whereas Netflix puts them right on Netflix. And although I think Netflix knows they're making a different type of product. I think it's pretty clear. But anyway, then Lionsgate had such a bad year at the box office that the little indie distributor A24 almost caught up with them domestically. But in 2024, Lionsgate is famous for their big losers. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, although to be fair, did a little bit better on digital. Borderlands, Never Let Go, The Crow, and of course, Megaflopolis. Megaflopolis didn't even really become a sensation as a flop. I liked it. I mean, to me, it was a work of art. It belongs in the Louvre. I wouldn't say the Louvre, but a modern art museum. I thought, and I've seen some really crappy exhibits in modern art museums. So Megalopolis, I think, would be better than most stuff that I see in modern art museums. No wonder that Lionsgate has let AI start to make their development decisions. They're like, couldn't be worse. Then, as I said, A24, long a niche fan favorite and awards darling, is starting to make some real waves at the box office as well, thanks to their very successful launch of Civil War earlier in the year, and also Heretic did solid numbers. Can Timmy C take them even higher at the box office next holiday season when he releases his next December film? Marty Supreme. I mean, after Wonka and A Complete Unknown, Timmy C is becoming a holiday tradition. So that's the 2024 box office. Looking back, any of your own observations? And how do you think these studios will fare in 2025, where we will now begin to turn our attention? Share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.